Welcome to Carte Los Angeles with Daniel Krasofski for a second part of the interview. Now we are at his place. And Daniel, we're going to talk about what you're doing, what your projects are. And first of all, I know you do also make liquor. That's a good interesting. We're going to come to liquor at the end of the interview, but I want to know right now for the people, what's the difference between making alcohol and making perfume?
So alcohol, there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. The biggest similarity between the alcohol that we drink and perfume is it's made the exact same way. So a high alcohol ethyl alcohol, like a vodka, is exactly what we use for perfumery. There's a little bit of subtle differences, but they're almost exactly the same. And when making liqueurs, it is like a recipe. It is a formula, just like making a perfume. So the perfume that we made today with a little drop of this and a little drop of that, it's exactly the way that I create the liqueurs by adding different fruits and flavorings.
If we drink perfume, the taste is terrible. So what make the difference between the drinkable part and the undrinkable part?
So if you are using, say, a patchouli or a rose as a flavoring agent, if you dilute that essence or that flower extract, in small dilutions, it actually tastes good. Snapple, Coca-Cola uses essential oils in their formulas. So almost everything that you consume has some essential oil or flavoring agent. So it's all about the quantity.
Oh, let's talk about more your project now. You working different things. You're making perfume, but you're also making scents that smell, that put people in moods.
Well, I got my start with using scent and using essential oils and creating perfumery at the Ayurveda Corporation when I worked for Ayurveda in Minneapolis. That was in the mid-90s, the 1990s. And so while working with Ayurveda and working in the spa industry, I'd use essential oils essentially for classical aromatherapy. So I would create scents that the client could either use for after sports, that was therapeutic for the skin, or use jasmine and rose to send somebody into a relaxed state, or something like vetiver. If somebody needed to be knocked out, we'd use vetiver to really get them relaxed. So for 20 years, my primary focus was using scent or aromatherapy to help get people to a state of either relaxation or invigorated or emotionally balanced. So for 20 years, that's the way I approached the use of scent. While living here in Los Angeles, I started using scent at a spa that I was the director of called Ona. And I created their entire product line that had everything from deep relaxation to help soothing the skin to invigorating. I have since changed that into kind of helping actors use the sense of smell to move into a specific state as a tool for their character. So I'm currently doing a lot of work with people in the film industry to help their characters develop even deeper.
You give him a special scent before he goes on stage, or that's how it works?
So my process for working with actors and using scent is I get a hold of the script and I'm working directly with the director. So I usually get the script even before something is cast. I'll read through it. I will look at some of the different, I'm doing a lot of work with Shakespeare's. Shakespeare mentions scent a lot in his work. So I'll pick out where Shakespeare or another author has mentioned a plant, a scent, or if there's a scent profile around a scene, I will then put those together in usually about 8 different scents. I'll present that to the director and get a yes or a no. And then I'll present, we'll get the entire cast together before major rehearsals begin. I'll go through and explain the whole purpose of all of the different essences or the scents, and then the actors get to choose what they would like to use for their character. So yes, if there's murder involved, for example, I did a Hamlet, and I created a scent called Humanic. that is the essence of a human being, or the scent of the skin, the scent of a human. And the actor who's playing the ghost chose the scent of being human, because he was taken away from humanity early. So he was using as a metaphor the scent of human for his character as a ghost. So, and another example is for Ophelia, who also from Hamlet, I created a scent called Ophelia's Grave. And it was used by a number of the actors who really loved and cared for Ophelia. So it brought them to the space of smelling the earth and the grass of her grave, and it brought them to a place of either caring for her more or recognizing her departure.
Last time I met you, we went through some interesting scent, like, for example, you say human scent, and or you make me taste smell melting iron, something like that. How do you make those actually?
So when we were at the IAO, you saw the library, the student organ. When I come up with an idea or a brief for a perfume or for a scent, for a character or for a scene, I will break that down into the separate accords. So just as a musician, if you were creating a song or a composition, you'd break it down into the different notes and how you want to arrange those notes. So as a perfumer, we do the same thing. Our notes just happen to be the molecules. So I was working on a project and I had to come up with some interesting accords. One you mentioned was a metal accord. Yeah. So I went through and created my brief. I then analyzed all of the different molecules that we have within the student organ and my personal organ, and all of the ones that had a sense of metal, the smell of metal, I notated and then began the composition process of putting those notes together. So it's a pretty laborious task, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's amazing. The result was amazing. I remember smelling really melting iron. It was like
there was when you're using scent as art, it's no longer just to smell like lilies or like flowers. It's really creating the scent of space around you, and that's one of the reasons why I'm working with actors, is because if a scene calls for, say, iron or melting metal, it's very difficult for an actor to be like, oh, there's metal. But when they can actually smell it's a visceral response. And when an actor has that type of visceral response, the audience actually gets it as well.
And can you think in the future, are we going to be able to put smell in the audience? Actually, we talk about this. It happened in the 50s, right? They were like, how was it called? And what happened to this?
Well, smell-o-vision was a very interesting experiment. It was a very costly experiment, and it lasted for a very short period of time. When smell-o-vision was around, was 58, 59, 60, 61, and the theaters that were equipped with this smell-o-vision had tubes to every seat. They had tubes to every seat. So whenever a scene would come on, scent would be sent through this tube to every seat. What happened, unfortunately, was the scent was so strong, it was making people ill in the theaters, because you couldn't get the scent out fast enough. So it became just this melange of everything, and literally people were getting ill and sick. I see a future where it would be either in virtual reality or even in a scented smell-o-vision type of experience, where you might be wearing something that would be triggered by a scene in the film, or by a button up in the box, or in virtual reality as you walk closer to something, it might trigger something that would give you a smell.
Oh, so you mean you have different little
vials or
So
bottles.
bottles like this on your body, I mean on your chest, and every time
Possibly.
that would be a possibility.
I really do think that that is a possibility.
Technically, it's maybe doable.
Technically, I think technically something like that would be doable within the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So very soon.
Oh yeah. I know the audience not gonna smell it, but I would like to experience for you some of the scent that you make. It's pretty interesting.
Well, I do a number of different things. Everything from something that smells beautiful like flowers, something that smells authentic to the 1500s, to avant-garde, unusual stuff. So we mentioned the metal, and one of the first ones that I will let you smell is something that I created called gray metal. The idea behind this is to create the scent of iron, in particular like a raw iron. So again, you always want to wait about 10 to 15 seconds for the alcohol to evaporate. Little bunny sniffs.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. It works.
It has a very visceral reaction, and that's one of the reasons why it's been so effective for actors, is because when you smell something, you can feel it, and it's those feelings, those emotions that come back with smell that people really react to. Now this one is a white metal, or an iron or melting metal.
Different, yeah.
Yeah, this one, we did an exhibition a couple of months ago, and strangely enough, the white metal is something that a lot of people really liked.
Yeah, because it's kind of softer than the green one.
Mm-hmm.
The green one has the greenest kind of a young tree. This one is super nice.
And I'm actually incorporating some of these into perfume compositions as well. So this next one is call this Dry Earth. And a couple of we smelt the indols earlier today, which were like decomposing animal flesh and fecal matter. I actually included a lot in this. This is called Dry Earth, and it was inspired by the dry earth of a barn or of a farm.
Oh yeah, that's quite amazing. That's really really close to what you can smell if you go in the countryside, or it's very interesting.
And then let's see. Do you want to smell one more?
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, you liked this one earlier today. So we smelt hexanol cis 3 earlier today, which was the scent of one of the molecules that's given off fresh cut grass. So I created this composition. This is an accord, and it has about 7 different aroma molecules as well as some naturals. So theoretically, there could be about 400 individual chemicals in this bottle. I personally only added 6. So this is a representation of green leaves.
Oh yeah. When you take the leaves and you put them in between your hand and you smell it, it's exactly what it smells.
Yeah, it's like crushed green.
Crushed
leaves.
greens. It's amazing.
All right, and then lastly, from this series, this is a scent that is reminiscent of an ocean.
Vanilla.
There's a coconut.
Oh, coconut, yeah.
Yeah. So you have top notes, middle notes, and base notes.
Uh-huh.
So as these begin to dry down over the next hour or two, different scents will start to come out. So you'll smell the coconut right away.
Yeah. Very powerful.
In an hour, it's going to smell like salt water.
Actually, the coconut disappeared a little bit right now already. That's amazing. It's pretty bright. I mean, it's really interesting. The coconuts were jumping to my nose right away, and now after a few seconds already, it went down a little bit.
It's a trip actually how the molecules disappear so quickly.
Yeah. Also, how many different perfume you can smell before you stop to have your nose refreshed, for example? Because I'm sure if you smell 20 or 30, your nose is totally messed up.
That's a good question. People who have trained smelling for many years can actually smell pretty much non-stop.
Yeah.
There are some times that you do need to get some fresh air. You need to walk outside. I do a lot of work outside. Because of the fresh air.
Yeah.
But if people are trained, you can keep smelling and smelling and smelling. The most I have ever done in one day was 150 different smells.
Wow, that's a lot.
Which is a lot. And I did take a break periodically, but once you've trained your nose to smell, you can actually smell a lot of things.
Yeah.
The average person, though, it really can take just a matter of minutes before they're like, I can't smell anything.
Yeah. So now, Daniel, do you want to finish with some other smell that are very interested?
One of the accords that I created is called Earth, and the idea behind this actually harkens to another project that I did, where the actors had to spy on a number of people. The characters had to spy on people, and one of the ways that they did it was by crawling around in the earth. So I created this scent that I call Earth, and it's based on a classical fougere perfume, which is a very popular scent in modern perfumes. So this is a combination of oak moss and sandalwood. It smells very similar to what a men's perfume or cologne would smell like.
Yeah.
So I created that one for...
Interesting.
This one, it's oak moss, which is actually a banned ingredient these days.
A banned ingredient?
A banned ingredient. So we were talking earlier about IFRA, the International Fragrance Regulatory Association. IFRA, they have banned a number of ingredients because it can potentially cause allergens, and one of the ingredients in here can cause an allergen. I created that particular formula for an actress named Amy Brenneman, who's on a television show, an HBO show called The Leftovers. Mm-hmm. And I created a whole set of these. Her character did not have any dialogue for the first season. And so I was like, which is a very unusual thing, but for the character, I read the book, and the character had a lot of internal dialogue, so I wanted to create scents for the actress so that she could have a visceral reaction even though she had no dialogue. Mm-hmm. So I was inspired by her, and I gave these to her to use. One of the ingredients was, or one of the formulas was the Earth formula, but I also created another scent called White Flower that represented the, how would you say, the religious aspect of her character. And that is this. She was also cast in another television show. Yeah, that's actually turned into a very popular one, White Flower. It's long. It's very narcotic.
Yeah.
But that inspired another set of fragrances that I created specifically for her and another project she was working on called Rain, which is on the CW network.
Yeah.
And the show is about Catherine de Medici and her court when Mary, Queen of Scots, comes in and moves into her castle, into her court, to then wed her, to wed Catherine's son, and eventually become Queen of France, which didn't quite work out that way for Mary, Queen of Scots. When you look at the history of perfume, a lot of it comes back to Catherine de Medici herself.
She bring that from Italy, I guess, from Florence, when she come from.
Exactly, yeah. So when Catherine moved from Italy to France, she brought her perfumer, alchemist, poison maker, and confidant with her, which happened to be all one person, her perfumer.
Yeah, I know. I forgot his name, but he was very famous.
René La Florentine.
There you go.
And so she brought him with her, and thus bringing a lot of the Renaissance ethos, the Renaissance aesthetic to France. And so we owe a lot of the modern perfume world to Catherine de' Medici. So Catherine brought scent to Paris, and she mandated that all of her leather goods be scented, because leather was...
extremely strong smell. I have strong smell naturally.
Naturally, it has a very strong smell. So she required all of her leather be scented. So as a mandate from the Queen, you've got to do what you've got to do. And it just so happened that in Grasse, France, they... that terrain was very good for making leather, lots of fresh water for cleaning, but it was also very, very good for growing plants. So the leather industry eventually turned into the perfume manufacturing industry, which still today, 400 years later, Grasse is still considered the mecca of modern perfume. So for the actors, I created a whole series of different scents that were infused in leather, as well as can be used on the skin or on paper. Catherine wanted all of her leather goods to be scented, so she mandated that the leather makers learn how to make perfume. This was her favorite perfume, which was orange blossoms and musk. And this is presented on leather, so it would be very authentic to what she would have smelt.
Oh, I see. It's a piece of leather that you give me.
Wait. And so I created...
Oh, wow.
I created these specifically for the actresses so that they would understand, have a deeper understanding of what their characters actually smelt in the 1500s. The characters, Catherine de' Medici and Mary, Queen of Scots.
And on the leather, the scents changed. It's not when you smell it on the paper and leather, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, fragrance smells very different on human skin because of our own chemistry, but also on leather because the leather itself has a chemistry to it. So in the 1500s, their leather was infused with aromas so that it would act as a perfume and kind of control their funk. So the modern perfume industry was started in France, and it's still considered the mecca of modern perfume is in France. One of the things that I have done as using scent to affect emotions is still infusing scent into leather, but specifically for actors. So this is what I use for actors when I put scented leather in here and then present this to the actor so that it will be infused and the scent lasts much longer when it's on leather.
Now I wanted to move to another part of your skills, I mean, which is making liquor. So, what are you doing?
Well, when I some of the processes of making perfumes and extracting the scents of either citrus or resins, you have to do a lot of different processes using alcohol. So I realized that I could actually infuse alcohol for consumption and create liqueurs. So I've created a whole line of liqueurs.
So now we have some sample of what you do, the liquor you make, basically. So
I like to use pure plant ingredients, pure fruit, pure flowers, as opposed to any kind of synthetic flavoring materials. So we can try a couple. So we were at the IAO earlier today, and for our award for the competition, we have a golden pear as the statue for the awards. So I created this liqueur called Golden Pear, and it's a combination of pear, apple, apricot, frankincense, almond, and vanilla.
Damn. Not bad at all.
And so that is, we've served that at our award ceremony. This is just a little distilled water to clear out.
And how would you drink that? Like that, or on ice, or?
So the golden pear can be added to champagne. It could actually be added even to a white wine or seltzer water. It's a nice mixer. Or you can drink it on its own. This next one is usually mixed with a little bit of water. One of my favorite things to do is work with local growers, and rose is one of my favorite plants. So this is a rose liqueur that I made from a local farmer and mixed either with seltzer water, distilled water, or even with champagne is rather lovely.
Oh yeah, and you can taste the rose.
Yeah, it's a strong.
One.
This is a little bit less diluted. If I were actually selling this particular one, it would be added to another or slightly diluted.
And how much percentage of alcohol we talking about those?
You're getting these are about 70 proof.
Oof.
Yeah, that's why we're only having a small amount.
Yeah.
I do have a background in Ayurvedic medicine, which is a traditional medicine from India that dates back about 4,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I found is that alcohol as a medium is great for creating perfume. It's quite lovely to drink, but it has, from the therapeutic perspective, a way of penetrating an herbal extract further or deeper into our tissues, per Ayurvedic philosophy.
Okay. With the alcohol, you mean?
The alcohol, yeah. So when you infuse something into alcohol, it goes directly into our bloodstream. So if you have, say, turmeric or ginger or cardamom, which is a therapeutic herb, that itself can then be brought into the bloodstream faster.
Okay.
This infusion is a traditional Indian tea formula using licorice root, turmeric, cardamom, and ginger.
Only good produce can be bad for you?
To your health. This is a medicine one.
It's funny, that reminds me of a French alcohol named pastis or ricard, or absinthe also.
It does, doesn't it?
It's close to it, yeah.
It's got the licorice root.
Licorice root, yeah, that's what they use for that.
And so earlier today you had mentioned patchouli.
Patchouli.
Would you like to taste some patchouli?
Alcohol?
Yeah.
Liquor? Yeah.
Well, this is I've made a dilution of the patchouli because having a full drop of patchouli would blow you away. Yeah. So this is at a 0.01% dilution.
Oh,
so it's a very, very low dilution, and we're just one drop, and that's more than enough.
Already I can smell it.
Yep. And this one will stick in the palate for a while, so you will be noticing that for a while. And you can just take a little sip of that. You don't need the whole thing.
Oh, man.
It's strong, isn't it?
It could be very strong if you abuse. If you put too much, that would be not very good.
So in a very small quantity, you can add that as a flavoring agent and create your own liqueur.
Nice. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you.
I think we cover everything, pretty much everything you wanted to talk about. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting day, and I hope all the people from à la Carte Los Angeles will enjoy it also. Thank you very much for watching the show à la Carte Los Angeles. See you next time for another episode. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Shoulders.